Welcome to Book Crew. We are on KCCC 930 in Carlsbad, New Mexico on Mondays at noon. We're available on YouTube under the Task Force Geek banner. And by the time you hear this, we'll be on every major podcast aggregator out there. I am writer and marketing Jedi Dirk Hooper, and I'm joined as always by author and editor Beth A. How you doing, Beth?
I'm doing good, Dirk. How are you doing?
Doing okay. I'm hanging in there.
Hey, I didn't get blown away the other day. I mean, we had some crazy winds again here in New Mexico. So
we're back under a fire watch here in Oklahoma City too. It's the craziest weather. It
is.
It's not that usually when you get wind around here, you get rain. You get wind and rain. We're just getting the wind, and the wind. And without the rain, we got fires. So, anyway, we're ready to wrap that up around here for sure.
Oh, and then poor Nebraska.
Actually, today it was gorgeous.
Was it? I like went out
60
earlier.
degrees and no wind. I mean, it's just you get about 3 of those days in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. This was one of them.
I've got some light breezes going on and a sunny day, but it's chilly. So, hey, at least we're not in Nebraska, who had 80-degree weather and then a snowstorm. Yes.
we get that in Oklahoma too, for whatever reason.
Snow in Oklahoma, I don't want it.
Hey, Beth, I want to ask you, because we haven't asked on the other shows. What are you working on right now?
What am I working on? I am currently I'm actually working on 2 different things. I'm working on a book that is the start of the Global Beast series that we talked about with Angel Nix and Jonna D.
Right.
So I'm working on that. I got the cover for that this week. It is gorgeous. I'm absolutely tickled.
Oh, I want to see it.
On it.
Oh, I'm very excited to see it.
Okay, hold on here. Let me load it up.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah, I have it. And then I'm also, I'll load up the cover for the other one I'm working on. I have started a series that's a little different than what I normally write. It's not a mafia romance series. It's kind of mafia, but it's not. I'm not labeling it as mafia. I'm labeling it as the Iron Syndicate. And the Iron Syndicate is the first 3 books in it are about the Iron Syndicate's enforcer, Hiro Tanaka.
All right.
So I am immersing myself in some wonderful Japanese culture, and
old and new.
Old and new.
Yep.
And bringing that together. Hiro is very loud in my head and has insisted that he gets 3 books in the series, which of course made the other 2 main characters go, "We want 3 books too." And I'm like, "Oh, great. Thanks, guys. Right. Okay." But the first book in that series is called The Silent Ronin. And I have loaded up the 2 covers if you want to show those.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to do it? Okay.
I can show. Hold on here. I got it. So there's the cover for The Warders of Ryujin.
Yeah, cool.
That is the.
I like those colors.
Mm-hmm, that is the Beauty and the Beast take, where my beast is a Japanese water dragon.
Cool.
So there's cool. That one, and then there's the cover for The Silent Ronin.
Oh, front and back.
Yeah. I haven't pulled the ebook off it yet, but
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so that's what I'm currently working on right now. I have a list of other things that I need to be working on as well. There is one other thing that I'm working on. It's a short story for a Ukraine anthology that Angel was talking about called The Lady of Chernobyl. That's the other one I'm working on. So cool. That anthology is to raise money for, obviously, people in Ukraine and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I finished my Dominatrix Squad cover today. I'm not going to show it because I promised myself I'm not going to show it to anyone until it's listed somewhere. And that's a whole other subject. And I think it's probably time because there's some stuff going on with Amazon. This is definitely not the time to talk about that.
No.
but because that's a whole subject unto itself, and probably we need a whole group of people maybe to talk about it. I looked at some stats today. I'm actually very anxious to talk about kind of what's going on over at Amazon, and I will make a decision in the next few days on whether I'm going wide or if I'm going, with Kindle Select. So there we go. Let's get to our feature interview. Born on the Rocky Boys Indian Reservation in Montana, also known as the Chippewa Cree Reservation, Buzz comes from a lineage steeped in creativity and cultural preservation. His father famously represented their native culture in the 1939 classic film Susanna of the Mountains alongside Shirley Temple, while his great-grandfather, Mountain Chief, was a revered figure in their community. Buzz is an activist dedicated to supporting Native American communities. He co-founded the Native Project, a nonprofit organization that initially served as an outpatient drug and alcohol treatment center for Native youth, using a combination of traditional Native American healing practices and 12-step programs. Buzz's life has been filled with diverse experiences, including his service in the U.S. Army, where he was stationed in Germany. He has lived in various parts of the world, including California, and now resides south of Seattle with his wife, Lonnie, his daughter, Mackenzie, and her family, including grandsons Cohen and Kaplan, who live nearby. Grinnell Buzz Dejarlais, welcome to Book Crew.
How are you today, Dirk and Beth? Good to meet you.
Good. It's nice to meet you too.
Yeah, we're doing good.
No fires in Seattle.
Right. That's a good point.
You get rain, man. You get a lot of rain. Send that rain down here.
Yeah, that's definitely not the problem there. Tell us about your book, Saving Casey, please.
Saving Casey. It is about, if you've ever heard of Karen Carpenter, that's the genesis of the book. It's a I guess you'd call it a historical nonfiction or historical fiction.
Yeah.
And I didn't set out to write it, but I wrote it. That sounds funny, but it's kind of how it came about, kind of a surprise. So what I've done is, a lot of people have always wondered, what would it be like if Karen Carpenter did not meet her early end with anorexia? And if those of it know her passion, she passed away at the age of 32 from anorexia and complications thereof, and died very young, was very talented, had a wonderful, wonderful voice. And her and her brother were magnificent stars in the early 70s and on in through the 70s before the whole act, obviously in the early 80s, came to an end. So many of the fans wondered, what would that look like if we would have been able to save her? So kind of in the same vein of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, if anyone is familiar with that Quentin Tarantino thing where he tracks it, and then just veers off into outer space with the story. That's what I did here.
Okay, yeah.
So, and then
interesting.
Follow that along and follow, her story and the unfolding of the events where it became famous and then disappeared into the woods with, hopefully is a good story. And it is there's a little bit of war in it. There's a little bit of mystical stuff in there. I would say some romance.
Yeah, there's romance there.
And a little bit of tension here and there. Just kind of an interesting story, and it just kind of kept going. And interesting thing about this book is that I wrote an ending, the original ending for it. And then after it was published, I thought, God, I didn't really, I was uncomfortable with the ending, and I thought I should have done the other one.
I was going to ask you about that because I noticed you had.
But
you have like two versions of the book.
Yeah.
You can kind of choose your ending.
So quite frankly, I didn't have the guts to write the original one that I thought should have been written.
Why?
So,
What made you back away from writing that original ending?
Because it involved harming, a little bit of harm here and there, and I just couldn't do it originally. But the more I thought about it, I thought, God, geez, Grammy, toughen up a little bit.
You realized that was the ending that readers actually probably wanted and was expecting.
I know.
And yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I changed the ending on the book I just wrote for the readers.
Yeah.
I originally had an ending that was kind of a downer. And when I was reading back through it, I got to a certain point and I thought, I can't do this to the readers. This is not the right thing to do. So I changed the ending.
So that becomes part of the process. So
Yes.
So I just really took the side door and I had both endings and said, pick the one you like.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go. For anyone who has issues with that kind of trigger, they have an alternate ending that they can fall back on and still be able to enjoy your book and really get into the story.
It gives everybody a little bit of reconciliation.
Yeah.
Of course, the alternate ending that I wrote, of course, was the more of a darker ending, but it made me squishy too, because it involves, when we write, you guys know this, you write about your characters and you just kind of fall for them,
Yeah.
And they become something real.
Yes.
So there was that. Basically, that's kind of how the book came about, what it transmogrified into. And,
yeah, that was kind of where I was going next. What was the inspiration for this? What made you think, number one, I need to write a book, and number two, this is the one?
It was a strange thing. See, I'm an electrical contractor in Seattle, Washington, and I do like heavy highway and big bridges and big stuff and all that. And it just was really not on my mind. It was the beginning of the pandemic, and I was kind of sitting at home pouting to myself because they wouldn't let me do anything. So I started watching YouTube reaction video things, killing some time. And all of a sudden, here comes this Carpenter's thing. And I thought, what the hell ever happened to her anyway? And I started remembering, gosh, I missed her passing because I was off doing things people shouldn't do. So I kind of lost track of what happened, and it was vaguely something bad happened. So I went back and kind of replowed the ground and checked it out. And I thought, God, that was horrible, because she was my first crush in the musical world. And we would have been the very same age, So that's why that is that way. So the more I played with that thing, and then I watched all the videos, then I read a book, and I read another book and another book, and I'm kind of like one of those guys that if you pull a thread on something, it's like the obsession stuff kicks in.
Sure.
I start pulling it, and it wasn't anywhere for it to go. I thought, this is like the saddest damn story I've ever heard. What the hell was wrong with these people? Didn't they see what the hell, on and on. I ran and raving, and my wife was going, are you okay? What's wrong with you? And it's cranky. So I just thought, what the heck? I just started writing something. And then I visualized, I just had to have another character in that, and the pieces started to fall into place, and then one thing led to another, and it started rolling. I had no intention of it at the beginning of it being a book, a published piece, anything like that. So, one piece fits in, one piece fits in, one piece, and you go to the next, you go to the next. One thing leads to the next, and a couple of years later, there we are.
You have a full book.
Yeah.
And two endings.
Yeah.
With two endings, yes.
So go ahead.
Was there any research that you did about Karen Carpenter that kind of stuck out with you and that really prompted any scenes in the book?
Well, I read the books, particularly Randy Schmidt wrote a book, what was it, Little Girl Blue?
Mm-hmm.
And probably, in my opinion, probably the most definitive look into her life that anyone has done. I mean, it really didn't have the blessing of family and all that sort of stuff. But then we find it those of us that have read it, that are Carpenter fans, find it very realistic, I guess. And the blanks were filled in and all that sort of stuff, and the relationship dynamics with family and all that sort of thing. And that's the one that really hooked me. And I thought, oh my God, it was the saddest thing in the world that I read along there, and real men cry. So it just got me.
Well, yeah, especially knowing that she hid so much of that from the public in the first place.
Yeah. And it become very skilled with it. So ultimately there was that kind of really kicked things off. Mm-hmm. And then I knew I needed to dig into the issues with anorexia. And what I discovered was there was a woman who was a German immigrant years ago, and she immigrated to the United States, and she was a doctor, obviously. And she had, and back in that time frame, she was a professor at Baylor University, and she had developed what she thought was a treatment for anorexia because she knew it was a thing before it was a thing.
Right.
And some people actually had this thing, and no one knew what it was, but she had kind of figured out and how to treat it and what the modality was for that treatment. And oddly enough, a guy like me could understand that because I had similar struggles, but with alcohol. And the thing is about those two things is that you got to stop doing one and start doing another. You got to stop drinking. You got to start eating. And why don't you just quit? It's simple, you think. Why don't you just eat something? It's simple, you think, but it's not. This thing up here does its work, and it creates all these things. And so two ends of the spectrum. So she had this modality for treatment, and I went through that and read a couple of her books, and then read a couple other books on anorexia and different treatment modalities, and then just kind of brought those pieces together to create something. The commonality between alcoholism and anorexia is very parallel, and the maladies are much the same, except for what I just described.
Right.
There is no cure for either one.
Right.
We put them in remission, and then we have to stay on top of the deal to make sure that certain things stay in place. And a part of that, most people don't like to hear, is a spiritual program that allows us to deal with things. Now that's where it starts to get kind of woo-woo, and that's why those of us who wind up in 12-step programs and they feed us that stuff about this and about that, we're going, oh, come on, get out of here with that stuff. And we're cynical drunks anyway. We don't believe half the stuff we hear, and you're trying to fill me full of lead and I ain't buying it. So, but ultimately, when the end comes and it's the last house on the block, and it becomes very clear that it is the last house on the block and that you're not going to live much longer, then we start to really pay attention. Some of us do, some of us never do, and we die that way.
Right.
But that thing is the same way. And it's like a drunk slipping, you quit eating, and then no one knows. They can't like smell it on your breath or anything. And of course, she was into all kinds of taking syrup of ipecac at the end to things generated, and that's what led to her demise. But a very moving story of a human that I thought was sorely and truly misunderstood and abused in many ways. And so that thing just unfolded. How do we save her? How do we save her? So I had to create a character that had issues and how do you get those issues and all those kinds of things. I took a character off the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, got him down to California, got him in that system down there, and he made a bunch of friends, and then certain things happen, and he winds up in Vietnam.
Yep.
And am I going too far and too fast with this, or what?
No.
No, you're doing fine.
So go ahead.
Let me ask you what your writing process was like for this book.
It's kind of odd because, and I've never written a book, obviously, and I thought I wanted to get the emotion in it to begin with, to see where it would take me and how that would feel, which is really kind of strange. I talk to other people, and I go, oh, that's kind of weird. So I really I started at chapter 9, which is the meeting for the first time of our male protagonist and the Karen Carpenter type character. And he's in a church. He's just kind of on a little leave, one afternoon leave from the VA hospital. He's pretty messed up. I mean, he's been captured. He was in captivity for 3 years. And so he's back, and it's a big secret because the U.S. Army didn't want anybody to know that there was a guy like this walking around and how he got back. It's a big secret because, anyway, political. So he knew how to play the piano. His mother had taught him all these special skills and stuff, and he was pretty good at it. And his fingers were all bent and bashed up because of his captivity, and he was trying to play the piano, a song that he had remembered, and then she just happened to be in that church, and there is a church down in California, a Methodist church, where she attended. That's where her funeral was. And she came up behind him in this scene and heard him playing and watched what he was doing, and she started to sing the song behind him. And his emotions are, people come back very bereft of emotion. There is no emotion. What emotion do they have left? There isn't any. And so he hadn't been able to show any emotion. He was just very, very stripped. And then she laid a hand on his shoulder, and then that's the first time that anybody, a female, had laid a hand on him in all that time in a gentle way, and it just broke it. And so he's trying to play that song, and he's crying at the same time all over the piano, and she's seeing this. And so that's kind of their meeting. So I wanted to catch that emotion on both ends of them and see what that felt like and process that out. And so then I went back to the beginning of the story and wrote it the direction into chapter 9, and then from chapter 9 outward. So
very interesting.
Kind of how it went. I don't know if I would do that again. I'm kind of working on some other stuff, but
yeah, I'll ask you about that here in just a moment. Tell us about the Native Project.
The Native Project was a deal where in the early 80s, I sobered up in 84. And so about 88, excuse me, we could see where Native kids in the Spokane area had no way to recover from the things that they were getting themselves involved in. And there were close by reservations around there, and their parents had moved into town for work and whatever. And these kids would get themselves mixed up in things, drugs and alcohol. And there was, well-meaning people would send them to these white-run non-Indian operations where they had complete disconnect from their culture. So the impetus for Native Project was to bring the 12 steps in and cultural healing in for these kids to experience. And we eventually got a government pilot grant to start. That morphed into an IHS facility, and that morphed into something bigger than that. And eventually we had a building built. And then, in fact, when I retired from board chair, that's about 8 years ago or so. and I moved into the Seattle area. And in fact, next month is going to be another grand opening of an even larger facility just down the block. They spent $7 million on the thing, so they must be doing okay.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a wonderful experience.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
What is the connection between native spirituality and modern science concepts like quantum mechanics?
Well, I think the connection is like very fluid, and it's like quantum mechanics. If I told you I understood it, I'd be lying to you. If I told you I totally understood what goes on with native spirituality and spirits, I'd be telling a fib as well. But it's very spiritual. I discovered it, and I'm just kind of a funny guy. I was raised in the Catholic religion, and back on the reservations in the early days, it was very brutal. We all hear that.
Yeah.
And,
For sure.
My mother was.
Watch 1923.
Yeah, no joke. Oh my gosh.
My mother experienced that, and a lot of my relatives did, and my grandparents too, obviously. So that had a hell of an experience. Then we passed this stuff on intergenerationally, and all the sexual abuse and the alcoholism and all that stuff just comes boiling out, and it's hard to get rid of it. So. For me, it was a struggle because, you get indoctrinated into that thinking of that, and then I heard a couple of black robes talking in the church basement one day and said, well, it doesn't matter what happens to them, they're all going to hell anyway. And I
Wow.
thought, okay. And so, especially tough for me, because when you get into this recovery thing, they talk about, spiritual program. Well, that's not going to work for me. They already passed judgment on me. I don't stand a chance here. So then we start the separation and the exploration between religion and spirituality. What's the difference? And it turns out there's a big difference, but it sometimes takes time for us to figure that out. I'm no different than a lot of people. And if I really look at it, what I tell people now is that, I was always looking for this thing. When do I get this magic occur and all this sort of thing? But, the magic already occurred. Somebody got you and plopped you in that chair at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then it just kind of went from there. You didn't have anything to do with that. Oh, really? So this old wisdom that a lot of these old AA people have embodies a lot of this stuff. And I was told early on, spirituality it's in the stars, it's in the universe, it's everything but religion, really. And I just couldn't put those pieces together. Eventually, I started, and I think this happens this way with a lot of people. They either do one of two things. They'll stay in the 12-step program, and they won't vary from that at all. And maybe they'll start going to church, or maybe they'll develop a different belief system. But that's the center of the universe for them, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some of us are looking for why did this happen this way? What's going on? And for guys like me, I start scratching the surface on that stuff, and it leads to these other places. It leads to Buddhism, and Buddhism, I don't practice it, but I believe that that's the thing. Interesting comment about that is I was in Germany recovering from a terrible drunk, and I was in the library on a Sunday trying to calm myself down, and I was looking for a book to read. And of all things in that library, I picked a book that said Siddhartha. I didn't even know what the hell that meant. So I started reading it, and that was kind of like my first introduction into that. And then I'd forgotten about it. But years later, it comes around again. And that, of course, leads to reincarnation. And there's an old Indian fellow who was a tribal member, chief, if you want to call it that, in Canada. Little Indian band up there called the Alkali Lake Band. And they had 100% alcoholism. And he got sober through the 12-step program. And over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 years, everybody in that little clan got sober, 100% sobriety. So as a part of the Native Project, my task was to get a hold of him, get him out of Canada, fly him into Spokane, and have him attend our summer camp so he could talk to the kids about how this went on. And they did make a clip of that too. It's called "For the Honor of All," and I think it still exists someplace. But anyway, I picked him up in the airplane from the airport, and we went down to a little restaurant. And as soon as we get out of the truck and walking in, he pulls this book out of his back pocket. He starts waving around. He said, "Buzz, I found it, man. I found it." And I said, "What? Reincarnation. It's the thing, man. It's the thing." And I'm thinking, oh God, I picked up a nut. But and here I was some years later, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's the thing. And I don't beat anybody over the head with it, and I don't run around telling people, "Well, you got to believe in this." I never liked it when people did it to me, so I don't do it to other people.
Right.
It's just that with me, it's not even a faith or a belief. It's just a knowing. I just know. That's it. And that's good enough for me. And I've read some things. Michael Newton was really good about a lot of the stuff he put out on reincarnation and how he explains it and lays it out, goes into the in-between place and kind of shows you what that looks like and stuff. And I just think it's really cool. That too then leads to astrology, and I never paid much attention to that, just like everybody else. Sunday paper, what's going to happen today? But it's way deeper than that, and there's some mathematics involved, and there actually is something to it. And again, I'm still a true cynic. So if you tell me something, I'm just gonna get out of here with that crap. So then maybe he's right. And I start scratching around on the side and figure out, there's something to this crap, Gee, Christmas. And then
Buzz, we've come to the end here. We're just about out of time.
Oh, geez, already?
I know.
The half hour goes fast.
I warned you before we started that it goes very fast. So I want to make sure that people know where to find you and where to find your book, Saving KC.
So Saving KC is on Amazon, finally, and you'll get the book there with both endings, and you can have the hardcover, soft cover, there's a French cover, there's all kinds of covers because it's been published 40 times by now. Oh my God.
French cover.
Nice.
So the website to find out a little bit more about me, what I'm up to, and what I do, is savingkcthestory.com. That's saving, initial K, initial C, thestory.com. And there's a brief history of me and my relatives and those kinds of things. I think most people find that pretty interesting.
Well, Buzz, thanks for being on here today. Is there anything else that you want to add before we let you go?
No, go buy a book, read a book. If you don't read mine,
please. Yeah.
Read a book.
Please read a book for sure. And Beth read your book and she said that she liked it. So,
well, I get an A for the day.
You've got one endorsement there. That's good. All right.
So we'll work on some more.
There we go.
All right, Beth, well, tell them where they can find you at.
And you can find me at the usual haunts. I am on Twitter and Instagram as BA Freely, Freely. I am also on Facebook You can also just go to my link tree, BA Freely. You can find all the links there to my websites and the whole 9 yards. You can find my books on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, the usual spots. You can also get them off of my website at Beth Ann Freely, BETHANNEFREELY.com.
Yeah, you can find me at writeworks.dirkhooper.com. I have articles on there, and I'll be adding more stuff there soon. You can also find me and Beth at themusesfunhouse.com, and also on Facebook at dirk.hooper. And then finally, before we go, I want to say that Beth is offering editing and book trailer services, and I'm offering author branding and social media management at themusesfunhouse.com. That's it. Thanks to our guest, Grinnell Buzz Dejarlais. For Beth A. Freely, I'm Dirk Hooper saying, dream hard.
And read a book.
Yes.
Amen.